I always thought blood was thicker than water. That no matter what happened in life, family would stand by you. I was wrong. So wrong. You see, I trusted my brother with everything. My parents' legacy, my share of the inheritance, even my heart. And what did he do? He sold my trust like a cheap secret just to feed his greed. It wasn't sudden. No, he played the long game, smiled at me over family dinners, called me sis like it meant something, all while scheming behind my back. And when our parents passed, leaving behind their house, the house we grew up in, laughed in, cried in, he made his move. He knew I was still grieving. He knew I wasn't ready to talk about wills and bank accounts. So he swooped in like a vulture, manipulated the paperwork, claimed the house and all the assets, left me with nothing but memories and a hollow ache in my chest. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even argue. Because what he didn't know, I had a plan of my own. And when the dust settled, I made a move he never saw coming. I didn't just get even. I took everything back piece by piece, starting with the house he thought was his. My name is Areeba. I'm the youngest of two, just me and my older brother, Denial. Growing up, I used to think he was a superhero. Daniel was 5 years older, taller, louder, and always got his way, but he looked out for me like no one else did. When the neighborhood boys teased me for being too shy, he was the one who taught me how to speak up. When I broke my arm falling off my bicycle, he ran all the way home barefoot to get help. He called me Bug Short for Love Bug. I hated it then. I'd give anything to hear him call me that now. Our parents, Ami and Abu, were kind-hearted, old-school souls. We weren't rich, but our house was filled with love, laughter, and the smell of cardamom chai. Every Sunday morning, the four of us would sit on the terrace eating parathas, joking about old memories. I thought we were unbreakable. After Denial graduated, he joined Abu in the family business and electronics store that had been in our family for decades. I, on the other hand, followed a different path. I wanted to study psychology. I wanted to understand people, why they did the things they did. Funny how that degree never prepared me for my own family. Denial was always the golden child. Confidence. Charismatic. The one everyone trusted to take care of things. No one ever questioned him, not even me. Especially not me. When I moved abroad for my master's, he was the one who waved the hardest at the airport, telling me to go make us proud, and I did. I came back stronger, more focused, but I never lost the soft spot I had for my brother. After our parents grew older, I moved back home permanently. Abu's health was declining. Annie had started forgetting things small at first, then heartbreakingly big. Daniel and I took turns caring for them. Or at least I thought we were sharing the responsibility. He always had an excuse. Bug, I've got back-to-back supplier meetings. I'll come by later. Just keep the nurse updated. You're so much better at this than me, Areeba. You've always been the nurturing one. And I soaked in those compliments like an emotional sponge. I didn't realize they were distractions, deflections, red flags dressed as affection. Still, I told myself, he's busy. He has a family. He's doing his best. After all, he had 2 kids to raise, a mortgage to pay, and a business to run. Me? I was single, working from home as an online counselor. I had flexibility, time. I didn't mind taking the lead. I loved Ami and Abu too much to keep score. But maybe, just maybe, I should have. Maybe if I had, I would have noticed how often he handled the paperwork, how he slowly took over everything financially, how he made himself indispensable and me invisible. When Abu passed, it shattered us both, but in different ways. I cried myself to sleep for weeks. Daniel? He disappeared into bank appointments and asset meetings. Said it was to take the burden off my shoulders. And I let him. Because even then, I believed in him. Even when Amy passed 6 months later, her memories all but gone, I clung to my brother like a lifeline. We buried her beside Abu, beneath the old tree they planted when they first moved into that house. The house we were raised in. The house they built with love, prayer, and decades of hard work. Our home. At least I thought it was ours. It started with a phone call. A short one. Barely 30 seconds. Hi, this is Mr. Remen from United Properties. Just calling to confirm the buyer's presence at the final signing tomorrow at 11 a.m. at our Goldberg office. I frowned. Excuse me? I asked, confused. What buyer? There was a pause on the line. Oh! Isn't this Ms. Areeba, the co-owner of the Rahim residence? Yes? Another pause. Then a polite cough. My apologies. I assumed you were aware. Your brother, Mr. Denial, finalized the deal last week. He mentioned you'd both agreed to sell your parents' house. I felt something cold crawl up my spine. No, there must be some mistake. That house isn't even... I stopped mid-sentence, suddenly unsure. Was it? I had never seen the will. Denial handled everything after Amy passed. All the paperwork, the bank meetings, the property documents. He said it was too painful for me. Said he'd take care of it. And like a fool, I let him. I ended the call in a daze. My mind went into overdrive. What deal? What buyer? Who had the right to sell our family home without so much as a conversation? I called him immediately, straight to voicemail. I called again and again. No response. By the 4th try, I was shaking. It wasn't just the house. It was them. My parents' laughter still lived in those walls. My childhood drawings were still hidden inside my old closet. That house was my anchor, the last piece of my family I had left. And he was selling it behind my back? I drove straight to his office. The receptionist told me he had just left for a client lunch. At that moment, I didn't know if I was angrier at him or at myself. How had I not seen this coming? Back home, I rummaged through every drawer, every old envelope, searching for something, anything that proved I still had rights to that house. Nothing. All the papers had been organized by Denial after Amy's funeral. He even kept the keys. I barely slept that night. My mind kept replaying every conversation I'd brushed off. How he always avoided money talk. How he insisted on handling the grown-up stuff, like I was still the little sister chasing butterflies in the backyard. Around 3 a.m., I did something I never thought I'd do. I messaged a lawyer friend from university. I need help. It's about my parents' estate. I think my brother lied to me. The reply came instantly. Come in tomorrow. Bring whatever you have. I had barely anything to bring, but what I did have now was suspicion. That phone call had cracked something open in me. A window to a darker truth. And I had a feeling of the betrayal I'd just uncovered was only the beginning. The next morning, I stared at my phone screen for 10 straight minutes, thumb hovering over Denial's name. Should I call him? Confront him? Pretend I didn't know anything? What if it was all a misunderstanding? What if that property agent had made a mistake? Maybe Daniel was selling something else, an old plot, not the house. Maybe I was overreacting. But then, why hadn't he called me back? Why had he gone completely silent? I finally pressed the call. Straight to voicemail. Again. Daniel, it's me. Call me back, please. We need to talk now. I hung up, feeling a tight knot in my chest. It wasn't just anger, it was grief, twisted into betrayal. I trusted him more than anyone. I stood by him when no one else did. He knew how much that house meant to me. So why was I left out of the decision? At noon, I met with Zarame, lawyer friend from university. We hugged briefly before diving straight into the mess. I laid out everything. How Denial took over the estate, how I never signed anything, how the call from the property agent shook me. She leaned forward, brows furrowed. Areeba, are you telling me you never saw your parents' will? No, I admitted, shame washing over me. He said it was simple. That we both got equal shares. I didn't question it. Zara shook her head slowly. Let me do some digging. If the house was sold recently, the documents should be publicly available. I'll find out who owns what and how. That night, I sat in my old room in the house. The curtains still smelled like Amy's fabric softener. The crack in the corner of the ceiling still shaped like a crescent Munabu used to say it was his lucky sign. And I sat there, wondering if I was crazy. Was Daniel really capable of this? Of lying? Stealing? Was I just paranoid? Blinded by grief? The front door creaked. My heart jumped. I rushed down, hoping it was him. It was. Daniel stepped inside, looking startled to see me. Areeba? What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, I said, crossing my arms. Or, better yet, why don't you tell me who you sold the house to? His expression flickered just for a second. Then, a practiced calm washed over his face. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, Denial. United Properties called me yesterday. They think I'm co-signing a sale I know nothing about. He exhaled slowly, like a parent about to explain something to a child. I was going to tell you, he said. I didn't want to worry you. Worry me. My voice cracked. You're selling our parents' house. Behind my back, and you think I'd be fine with it? He ran a hand through his hair. You don't understand, Bug. The business has been struggling. I had no choice. You had a choice, I snapped. You had me. You could have talked to me. But instead, you went behind my back. Silence stretched between us. Then he muttered, Legally, I had the authority. What? I whispered. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I had Amy sign a new will after Abu died. It gave me full control of the estate. I felt my knees weaken. I gripped the stair railing behind me to steady myself. You forged her signature? I asked, barely above a whisper. He looked at me, eyes flashing. Don't say it like that. She was slipping, Areeba. She didn't even recognize me some days. I did what I had to for the family. No, he didn't do it for the family. He did it for himself. All the dots were connecting now, his distance, his excuses, the way he kept everything handled. I turned away, tears burning my eyes. You betrayed me, I whispered. You didn't just sell a house, you sold us. And just like that, I walked out. No yelling, no fight, just silence. But inside, a fire had been lit. Because now, I wasn't just grieving. I was planning. A week passed. Zara called me with the official documents. The house our family home had already been transferred. It was gone, legally and completely. But that wasn't the twist. She sounded hesitant, her voice lower than usual. Areeba, I dug into the sale records like you asked. The Beerette's not who you think. I held my breath. Then who is it? It's Denial's wife, Saba. My mind went blank. What? She bought it under her maiden name, but it's her. Same CNIC, same bank details. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I felt the room tilt slightly around me. He didn't sell it to a stranger? I whispered. He sold it to her? Yes, Zara said softly. At half the market price. It looks like a legal transaction, but it's a family shuffle. He's trying to protect the asset under a different name. Maybe for tax evasion, maybe to keep you out of it. Everything inside me crumbled. He hadn't just gone behind my back. He had played me like a fool. Lied to my face. And then handed our parents' house, the place we grew up. The place I sacrificed so much for to his wife. For what? So he could keep it in the family, just not in my name? I remembered every cup of chai I made for Hammy. Every night I stayed up with Abu when he couldn't sleep. The thousands of moments I gave freely. The love I poured into that home. And he handed it away like it was his to give. I couldn't breathe. My throat felt tight. I walked into the backyard to calm myself. And that's when I saw them, Denial and Saba, standing in the garden, laughing, in my house. The house he stole from me. I stood there, frozen, hidden behind the curtain, watching as she wrapped her arms around him. She whispered something into his ear, and he kissed her forehead. They looked happy, proud, victorious. I had to bite down on my lip to keep from screaming. They had moved in, not planning to, not later, after the sale. They were already here, like vultures picking meat off bones that were still warm. Suddenly, it all made sense, the rushed paperwork, the silence, the lies. This wasn't about money. It was a plan. A calculated, heartless plan to take everything. I stepped back, breath shaking, heart pounding. I had spent weeks trying to reason with him, hoping there was still some brotherly bond left between us. But now I know better. They didn't just want to erase me from the paperwork. They wanted to erase me from the family. I couldn't hold it in anymore. 2 days later, I showed up at the house my house soon announced. No texts, no calls, just rage. I rang the bell once, then again, harder, and then I used the key I'd quietly kept hidden behind the old flower pot, the same one Amy used when she forgot hers. When I stepped inside, the sound of laughter floated from the living room. Saba's voice high, sweet, victorious. I walked in. They both turned to me mid-laugh, like I'd crashed a celebration. Daniel stood up, confused. Areeba, what are you doing here? I didn't answer right away. I took in the sight, new curtains, Saba's favorite rug, a vase of fresh tulips on the table. Like my mother had never lived here, like this had always been their house. You sold the house to your wife, I said flatly. Saba stiffened. Denial blinked. I told you. It was complicated. You lied to me. You forged papers. You tricked Amy in her final days to sign control over to you. Then you sold our parents' home to your wife at half its value. And now you're living here like... None of it matters. His face darkened. Lower your voice. No, I snapped. You don't get to tell me how to feel. Not after what you did. Saba stepped forward. Areeba, let's not do this. This house-sit was becoming a burden. The maintenance, the taxes. I cut her off. Don't pretend this was noble. You two planned this. You waited until Amy was too sick to fight. You knew I'd never challenge you. Denial looked away, jaw tight. I didn't plan this, okay? I just handled what needed to be done. You've always been too emotional about this house. Too emotional? My voice cracked. This isn't just brick and cement. It's where I held Amy's hand the night she passed. Where Abu taught me to read. Where we grew up. His silence screamed guilt. I stepped closer, trembling. You didn't just steal property, Danielle. You stole a legacy. You erased me like I never mattered. Finally, he snapped. Because you never did, he shouted. The room went silent. Even Saba's breath caught. He realized what he'd said, but it was too late. I handled everything, he spat. The paperwork, the hospital bills, the estate. While you were off grieving and crying and clinging to old memories, I was fixing things. My heart shattered. All those nights I blamed myself for not helping enough, and he'd been keeping score the whole time. I took a deep breath, tears in my eyes. You may have stolen the house, I said quietly, but you lost your sister. I turned to leave, but he called after me. You're overreacting. This doesn't have to ruin everything. I stopped at the door. It already did. And then I walked out head high, heart bleeding, but soul on fire, because I wasn't finished. Not yet. I didn't cry when I left the house that night. Not like I used to. Because something inside me had shifted. The sadness was still there. How could it not be? But it had hardened, sharpened. It wasn't grief anymore. It was for a purpose. The next morning, I sat with Zara and laid out my plan. She listened quietly, then leaned back in her chair, a slow, approving smile on her face. You want to go after them legally? She asked. I nodded. Not just legally. I want the house back. And I want everyone to know what Daniel did to get it. It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. Amy and Abu didn't raise us to tear each other down. But if Denial had chosen greed over blood, I wasn't going to let him win in silence. We filed a petition to challenge the validity of the second will the one Denial claimed gave him sole control. Zara gathered medical records, proving Amy's mental state had deteriorated by the time he allegedly had her sign it. We found her old physician, who testified that she wasn't in a condition to authorize any legal decisions. And then came the silver bullet. A handwriting analyst confirmed what I already knew deep in my bones. The signature on the second will, it wasn't hers. It was forged. Once that report was submitted, the court granted an injunction to freeze any further activity involving the house. Daniel's smile disappeared from every hearing. Saba didn't even show up after the second session. 6 months later, the judgment came in. The second will was declared null and void. The original will splitting everything 50/50 between U.S. was reinstated. And since the house had been illegally transferred to Saba at a deflated price, the sale was reversed. Ownership returned to both of us. I had won. But victory didn't feel the way I imagined it would. When the judge read out the verdict, I looked over at Denial sitting across from me, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. I didn't see a villain anymore. I saw a brother who had lost his way, but I also saw a man who had burned his own bridges and mine with it. That night, I walked through the empty house again. The silence was different now. It wasn't filled with ghosts. It was filled with memories, quiet, warm, unthreatened. I didn't rush to move back in. Instead, I had it cleaned and restored. I left everything just as Amy would have liked her favorite curtains back up, Abu's radio on the shelf. And then I made a decision. I didn't want to live on a battlefield. So I sold the house. Not to Daniel. Not to anyone in our circle. I sold it to a kind couple expecting their first child. A young woman who reminded me of myself. Someone who saw the place not as a property, but as a home. And with the money I earned, I did something I never imagined I'd have the strength to do. I bought a small apartment. A new start. No memories, no shadows. Just peace. Daniel tried to contact me after the ruling. He called, emailed, sent a letter. I didn't respond, because some things, once broken, can't be fixed. Forgiveness may come one day, but trust? That's a different story. And as I sit here now, sipping tea by my new window, I finally feel light. Not because I won, but because I chose myself. Because I fought for what was right. Because I walked away, not with revenge, but with freedom. And that's something no one, not even your own brother, can ever steal from you. White heavy check mark, the end.